I'm Jimmy Lewis.
And I'm Heather Lewis.
And we're with Dirt Bike Test, and today we're going to talk about the 2021 Yamaha Tenere 700. It's an all-new bike for us. We did initial riding impression on it, then we went ahead and took the bike and really did some riding. We rode it from Idaho back down to California, well over 1,000 miles of mostly off-road. Lots of different variations in temperature, but a real adventure bike. We loaded it up with some TourTech soft luggage and camped off it and did the whole thing. So we're going to tell you about how this bike works. Since this is an all-new bike in 2021, there are really no changes. Yamaha has taken a very successful, essentially a street bike motor, wrapped it into a adventure chassis with really good suspension, long travel suspension. They fitted it with spoked wheels, 18-inch, 21-inch. It was based on the T7 concept bike that they did a lot of showing off before this bike was actually released. And their idea was pure and simple adventure. In the way that the bike is spec'd out, and you can read about all the specs, and we talk about it in our initial impression. It is kind of minimalist when you have these adventure bikes that are coming out with lots of buttons and all different kinds of traction controls and stuff. This bike has switchable ABS. That's the one thing that it kind of has as a feature. It has a nice little dash, and it has some of the other kind of small creature comforts, but nothing too fancy.
But I didn't miss any of that. I didn't miss the fancy.
I didn't miss it either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of fun. It has some of that fancy, has showroom bounce, and it's kind of neat stuff to talk about. It's fun to play with, but you kind of settle on a setting, and that's where, we'll talk about that in the further part of this test. Into the power department, and this is where Yamaha has definitely some unique characteristics. They've done this motor is a lot of people's favorite motor. I really enjoyed it, and it's a 270-degree firing parallel twin, and they have names for it, and they call it a certain thing. But what does this motor make, Heather? It
makes smooth power. I mean, it's really comfortable and easy to ride power. But it's enough power to where you feel it and you can use it well.
Yeah, it's got a twin cylinder feel, especially at low RPMs. It kind of has that chug, and you feel it. It has that torquey kind of character, and it has a lot of flywheel feel. I mean, it feels like there's a bigger flywheel in there than there really is, because in reality, it doesn't have a ton of flywheel. It's not as revvy and as flighty as engines with more aggressive character. For instance, like the KTM 790, but it has a smooth torque and a pull, and that goes to about 4,500 RPM, and then the bike just starts building very progressively.
And pulls hard once you're up in the higher RPMs.
Yeah, the higher you go, it goes, and especially off-road, you will run out of traction. It hauls, and this bike doesn't have any traction control features.
But it felt like it did.
I know. The very first time you rode across sand and up across a really deep sand bed and up a hill, she goes, "I really like the traction control in this bike."
No traction control, though.
No traction control. That's just the way the motor works.
It just felt like it because it tracks smooth and straight, and it didn't bog. It didn't spin. I didn't feel it spinning at all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And that's what the flywheel thing you were talking about?
That's a little bit of the flywheel feel. That's just what kind of keeps it going, but it just doesn't break traction, but that doesn't mean it's slow. It just doesn't.
It just is smooth. It's a good application.
Everybody equates going fast with turning the throttle and feeling the wheel spin.
But usually, the more traction you have, the faster you'll go, because you're actually moving the bike forward instead of spinning the bike.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this bike, and until you get up to about 5,000 RPMs, it's really not going to break the wheel loose. But don't confuse that with slow, because when you feel how the bike moves. It's going. It just makes it really easy to ride. And most of the time when you are riding off-road, you're kind of in that 25 to 4,500 RPM range, and that's your 1,000 RPM range, and that's where you're at. But you start going above that, and then you can start being aggressive. So if you want to be aggressive, just rev it up.
Just rev it
and ride.
Use the throttle.
Yeah.
I think the good thing about it is it made it to where it didn't just jump out of my hands. Where if I give it gas, I didn't lose balance because it was riding out of control. Because it had that smooth application, so when I did give it gas, it did what I wanted it to do without me losing my balance and getting out of control.
Yeah, I think the gear ratios are really good. First gear is definitely low enough. Sixth gear is just tall enough.
Perfect, yeah.
The bike easily goes over 100 miles an hour. It'll go slow. It'll do technical trail riding. I feel the clutch is really good. It's got a light pull. The modulation is there. You can feel it. and it doesn't really, because of that torque, it doesn't really ask you to slip it much. You kind of like can let the clutch out and trust the torque. The other thing is the transmission. The shifting probably isn't the best. We had a lot of different guys ride this bike. You know, we ran into some riders out in the thing. We said, hey, try this. Everybody was excited about it. Almost everybody came back and said, I don't think the shifting's the best. I didn't really notice it until
we said it.
Yeah,
I didn't
until
either.
they kind of brought it to my attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it does have a little bit longer of a throw. Not perfect, but other than that, I cannot find anything to complain about in this motor. It's not slow. It just gets really good traction, and it does it without any sort of fanciness built into it.
You know, I was the one who rode it for the longest. I rode it 200 miles on a, you know, windy mountain road over the Beartooth Pass, and I didn't feel any kind of, like, I didn't get tired, so
not a lot of vibration.
Yeah,
with it.
Actually, no. Now that I think of it, no vibration, and it was smooth. And the wind buffering was a little bit because the wind fairing isn't as developed, but that's not the power. So, but I mean, but that goes along with the vibration.
And onto that, we've got to talk about fuel mileage. So the bike, the tank is a little over 4 gallons. I have to check the specs on the tank again. But we were kind of, when we were riding, we were getting anywhere from the low 40s up to almost 50 miles a gallon at some points. 52,
yeah, 45 was the average.
Yeah, but 45 to 43 seemed to be the average range, which we kind of budgeted out that was going to be 220 miles. And then when we started running it, was riding with a KTM 1190 is what we're riding with. And when you get the KTM 1190 on the road, it wants to go 85, 90 miles an hour. That bike, to go that fast, starts using a lot more gas.
Yeah.
And we got the mileage down to where we actually got the gas to boil. It was that hot. It was 109 degrees when we were coming across the desert. And the gas in the tank, actually the last little bit boiled, so we sort of ran out at just shy of 198 miles.
Yeah.
And you know, that's probably right around average. But the fuel economy and the economy, when you're riding it, there's a little light that comes on the dashboard that says economy. It's like almost always on. So it means, to me, it looked like as long as you're getting above 35 miles a gallon, it was a throttle position that sort of determined it. You're getting some pretty decent mileage at that. So the suspension is kind of a topic of a lot of debate for guys. For some reason, since this bike doesn't say something like ready to race on it, they're like, oh, the suspension's soft. And there's where I honestly, and I should have said something about this in the Power too, you get macho journalists that go, it's not fast, it's not racy, the suspension's soft. No, the suspension's really good.
Yeah, I didn't feel it soft at all.
It's plush.
Yes.
So it doesn't have the initial stiffness that the KTM 790, for instance, has, but it's definitely not mushy. It's more along the lines of the Honda Africa Twin that we've really liked, but it doesn't have that weight to make it soft. It's just sprung properly. And so in the up and down action of the suspension, it seems like the comfort level is there. But then when you start using the stroke, going through bumps, hitting things that you don't expect, it resists bottoming about as good as you could expect a 450-pound bike to do that. Now, Yamaha has settings that they have the standard setting, and then they have like a more aggressive setting, and then they have a more comfort setting. We kind of found our own setting that I actually thought worked better everywhere, and it was definitely stiffer. It was like from 14 clicks is about the standard setting on everything. Well, we ended up going in around 5 to 7 clicks on the fork and the shock on the compression, and then up to about 10 or 11 on the rebound. And Yamaha wanted us to go to like 7 on the rebound for the aggressive setting, but I found that slowed the rebound down enough to where it packed a little bit. Although it did make it stiffer, it also didn't let it extend, so at the same thing, it got stiffer and a little harsher. And so our setting in between there was really good. It's not wallowy at all on the street, but then off-road, like I said, the comfort is really good.
Yeah, I didn't feel, I mean, to me, I'm not a suspension expert, so I don't know the difference, but I know I didn't bottom it out, and it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't wallowy. The up and down motion was nice and smooth. It wasn't a hard hit when I hit stuff. The front suspension I didn't feel like it was too high or too low.
What did you notice about the front suspension?
Oh, that it moved really well.
It was a little
and
divey.
It was divey, but that's when you're doing the brakes.
On
So
the
it was
brakes.
a little divey. And I don't know, is that caused from the suspension?
That's the suspension.
Okay.
So the only thing, and this is funny because I've been asked, like, what would you change? How would you change it? I wouldn't change it if I was going to lose something else somewhere else. And so when you get on the brakes, a lot of times you feel the front end.
I did feel the front end.
Do a little bit of a little bit of a dive, and it's like, would I go to a stiffer spring rate? Not really. If I could add maybe a little bit of air to the fork, you know, and get a little air pressure, you know, as opposed to having bled off to zero.
Yeah, I think you did mention that.
That might help a little bit. But I wouldn't change the clicker settings, because I did try changing the clicker settings and it didn't go away, because it's not a low speed movement, it's more of a mid speed movement. So if I had a suspension tuner, I'd have them try to throw a little bit of mid speed valving into there, just because when it starts to move, if I could hold it up just a little bit better, and it's mostly getting on the brakes, but it doesn't upset the bike in the handling department, which we're going to talk about next. So in handling, we typically talk about, you know, the weight feel of the bike, how the suspension works in conjunction with the chassis, and then we talk about all the things we don't like. So let's just start right off the top with, what didn't you like about this bike?
It's kind of hard to decide, because like everything,
I mean, was there anything you didn't like?
The one thing I didn't like would have been the at a high speeds, I did think it probably needed a steering stabilizer at super high speeds on the road at like 95 on the freeway, but that's because I think it was the wind buffering us and causing us to shake a little bit.
It was wind, and then we also put Kenda big block tires on there, and they're not the best on grooves.
So
you know,
that was more an effect of the tire then. So
yeah. And then, but off-road, did you ever feel like you needed a steering stabilizer?
No, well, no.
I mean, I've never met a bike that
doesn't
like
need it. It always is helpful.
It's helpful.
I think for me the steering was really nice and like non-intimidating, and also very smooth and turnability. I guess, is that a word?
Yeah.
I was able to turn it, cornering.
Yeah.
I was able to turn it without feeling like I was going to fall over.
Yeah.
And the bike and the bars turned nicely.
Like the bars don't turn
the bars
on
didn't tuck in on me.
Yeah. And that happens on some heavy adventure bikes.
Exactly, yes.
No, so the bike, and so we'll roll back into just like the ergonomics of the bike. The layout is very dirt bike-esque.
Yes, yes.
To the point where everybody that rode it that comes from a dirt bike background said, this is one of the best laid out bikes that I have, even better than a KTM, which is kind of strange, because KTM is like dirt coming to street, and Yamaha makes everything. Where this has a really good dirt ergonomic feel, and it was like, in the beginning I wanted to roll the handlebars a little bit forward just to bring them up, but in the end
I didn't,
you know, it was good for you, so I didn't do it. And it's narrow where it needs to be.
I think that's the key, is that the narrow seat, or the narrow feel of the bike.
Seat to tank, and it's not
and the
too,
positions
it's not too narrow. The foot pegs are where they need to be. All that kind of stuff, and it doesn't. Even though visually there's a kind of a big tank in front of you, it doesn't feel like when you're riding that there's a big tank in front of you. You're not being pushed back like on some of the older KTMs
bigger bikes,
or the BMWs that have a big wide tank. And we had a taller seat in our bike because she's at 5'8", and she's more worried about the riding comfort, so your legs aren't folded up so much. And she didn't have any problem getting her foot on the ground.
Not at all.
Even with that, and I have a 30-inch inseam at 5'10", and I run tall seats on almost all my adventure bikes. So the seat definitely made it even more comfortable. I rode with the stock seat at the intro, and right away I'm like, give me a tall seat. I'm not worried about putting my feet on the ground. I'd rather have this better comfort onto the gas tank, and when I'm riding off-road, I'm standing up all the time. So when I kind of come into some of my complaints, one was talking about standing up. One is the foot pegs. I would always like a bigger foot peg.
I didn't find that a problem, but I don't ride with bigger foot pegs all the time. Or maybe I do. I don't know. I don't know.
You do. On our
bikes we do. But I didn't feel like they were too small to me. I thought they were fine.
Yeah,
but I'm also wearing a girl's boot, which is a little bit narrower and maybe stiffer. I don't know.
No, I think you're just not.
I'm not
pushing
using it
on the
as
bike
much.
as aggressively as I was, and so the foot pegs, I could probably sharpen them up and be a lot happier. But I'd probably like to replace them with something a little bit wider, farther out.
Yeah.
That was one of my little.
That would give you the more leverage. I think that would give you more leverage on getting moving the bike side to side and stuff. Yeah.
But like you're talking about the handlebars is you don't have to put effort in the handlebars, but if you do, it's actually pretty light, but just stiff enough so it doesn't
just do it on its own.
Unstable, even when you're accelerating hard, which is kind of become a problem in adventure bikes. You lighten that front end up, and all of a sudden it gets a little bit
too wobbly,
a little bit dancy, and then things go on. But it's easy to move around on the bike. It puts you in a good position. When we put our soft luggage on there, I was still able to move around.
Yeah,
I
didn't even notice it.
It was on there.
I even had to do braking. I didn't even notice that it was there because it allowed me to get back.
Yeah, it didn't upset the handling of the bike.
Yeah.
So all those things were really good. So along with the handling, one of the areas where the bike is kind of getting a little bit of a bad rap is ground clearance. And this motor wasn't, I don't think it was originally designed to be an adventure bike motor, so it has a big, a low oil sump in it. The exhaust pipes down around low, but that's not the problem. At least it wasn't for us. I mean, we never really, in any of our riding, unless I was doing something stupid, I didn't have a problem with ground clearance at all.
No.
But when I started riding over rocks and logs and things, I found out that the kickstand, the actual mount for the kickstand hangs down. That's the lowest thing there. That's the first thing that you're really going to hit. And right behind that is the kickstand sensor switch, which we ended up clipping on a rock, on a big rock that was fixed to the ground, and broke it. Luckily, the Yamaha only has 2 wires in there, and we were able to cut it and fix it. Put it back together. So there is a go around to fix for that. It's not like some of the other bikes that have 3 wires going down there, and if you break it, you're in deep trouble. So this bike, again, coming back to simplicity, being easy to work on. And in reality, I'm sure somebody will come up with some kind of a fix for that. I'm sure there's going to be some better skid plates, because we did hit our skid plate, and it does a good job at keeping the rocks that are throwing up. But if you're going to crash the bike into something,
it might crush in.
It could crush in and get some stuff bad, but that's a pretty aggressive venture riding. And then also there's stuff on the side of the motor. The water pump is down very low, and people are like, that looks vulnerable. It's as vulnerable as a clutch cover or anything else there. And again, I think the aftermarket will come in with some more aggressive skid plates.
The position of that I had to get used to that. But after I got used to it, I didn't even notice it.
Of the
water pump, because it hits the clutch cover, because it hits your leg.
Clutch is up really high in that little protector, and in the beginning you notice it coming from other bikes.
And then I didn't even notice it after a while. I think I just moved my foot around on the foot peg.
Yep. And some of the other stuff was the ABS is real easy to turn on and off.
Oh, super easy. That's like the easiest thing to remember.
Yeah, you just turn it off one button. It does. If you turn the key off or turn the switch off, it does rearm itself.
No, I think
it does.
Does it?
I think you can do it with the switch.
Yeah.
With the switch, it doesn't turn off. But if you turn the key off,
then you'd have to rearm it.
I take that back.
Forget.
I think you do, because I was stalling the bike to keep it armed if I was stopping on the bike. And the other part about the switch is you can switch the different modes, and it tells you the temperature outside, the engine temperature. You have trip odometers. When the fuel gets low,
I really like that feature.
It starts.
It starts to count up how many miles you've gone since it went on
low fuel.
Low fuel, yeah.
And we were budgeting 50 miles. For that, and it seemed to be pretty accurate.
It was pretty accurate. Yeah.
When it went up.
At first, I didn't know what that was, and I was like, "What is that odometer for?"
Why did it change
and
the
then,
mode?
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. It's getting about 45 to 50."
Yeah, but the display gauge with the RPM thing is nice. It's easy to see the speed limit. It's easy to see what gear you're in. It's really simple, and it doesn't do anything fancy. And another thing we definitely have to talk about is the price of this bike. So it's basically $10,000, and that's a few $1,000s, if not more, cheaper than anything else in its kind of same power and performance category. And when we talk about power and performance and how well they work together, that's where this bike seems to. It's just a really good package. When you talk about how come the handling's so good and how come the suspension, they did really good jobs individually, but when they put that motor in there and the way that power delivers and the way everything works, I think they've absolutely hit a home run on this bike.
And I think it's one of those packages where you can just buy it and not modify it and be happy with what you have. I mean, even just not even modifying it to get a bigger pipe or anything, it's just nice and mellow riding and aggressive when you need it. And I don't think you need to put more extra into it.
Yeah, it's like I said, we strapped soft luggage on it. Our bike had crash bars. We did change the tires. We went to a slightly more aggressive, the Kenda Big Block from the Pirelli Scorpion Rallies, and which were an okay tire. I just preferred something with a little more aggressive block on the side, because we knew we were going to be riding in sand and stuff.
But that's your typical thing you would change.
We're dirt bike tests.
Yeah.
We always put a more aggressive tire on the adventure bikes.
The suspension, like for that money, getting that good of a suspension.
That's really good. That level of performance, ready to ride away, is really good. You don't need to modify it, and I think all the features that it's lacking, it kind of like once you're riding it, 10 or 15 minutes in, you're like, hey, I'm good with this. So in conclusion, Heather, what did you really think?
I liked it. I mean, I was thinking several times during the ride, I was like, I wonder if I can get this bike. Because like, it's not intimidating. I like character of a bike that is torquey and where I can lug it and just ride mellow and not have that aggressive like revving motor all the time. I like that mellow. I like the mellowness of the motor. I like how thin the bike was. That was really comfortable for me. That is the key for me for being able to touch and not feel intimidated about like turning the bike or riding through the rocks and stuff, because I didn't have this big mass under me, or it didn't look like a big mass to me. Yeah. So, and then I mean, I felt comfortable the whole time. I rode through twisties and I didn't ever feel uncomfortable. I rode through the dirt and the silt and the sand and the rocks and the mud and ruts.
Yeah,
and
all
so
that
it all felt good, and I didn't ever feel intimidated. So I think for me as a woman rider, who that's one of the challenges we have, is the intimidation of these things. It never altered my confidence in riding.
And we're sitting here looking at the BMW, and we have a few
Yeah.
KTMs, we have a Honda Africa Twin test bike, and all these different bikes. So she has experience on all these bikes, and for you to say that is kind of, and I felt the same way. I mean, I was like, instantly I felt comfortable on this bike. It's like I could push it. I could actually ride it.
Yes.
I could ride it aggressively, and it was very confidence inspired. It wasn't fake confidence. The bike just worked. Everything about it. And a lot of times when we go on adventure rides, she'll ask to take like the XR650.
Yes.
Because she wants
I
something
love it, yes.
smaller
Yes.
that's more dirt bike like, but it'll still go down the road. And this thing goes down the road way better than that 650
Oh,
does.
yes, yeah.
And you talked a little bit about, the wind buffeting, and things where you get on an XR650, you get none of that.
I get none of the protection that this has.
And the one thing that I was telling her is because we put a little bit taller seat on it, put it a little bit higher
out
up,
of the pocket.
and you notice how you kind of dropped
Yeah,
in the
I did.
pocket.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
But the one bike that it's funny because like, where does this really fit in? It's like this could be the new KLR 650 for adventure riders.
Without the wallow.
Yeah, well, but no, with performance.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Performance and brakes that actually work.
Yeah. All this. Well, it's in the price market and stuff
Yeah.
where things are at.
It's a really good starting adventure bike.
It's a great starting adventure bike. It's not too
I
big.
mean,
It's not,
starting
it's not,
or even advanced.
It's not too small.
It's not, yeah.
And then it goes up where someone like me can ride it, and I can be totally happy.
Exactly.
And even if I'm presented with other options and stuff like that, I'm going, oh, that's looking pretty good, because it doesn't have any handicaps to it. So for all those guys that are saying it's soft suspension and it's underpowered, it's like go ahead, but I'm not going to agree with you. I think it does everything really good.
I think they need to fix their wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe, follow us, check us out on the website at www.dirtbiketest.com, and tell a friend about us. Cheers.